Isn't it good to be aware? To just pause for just a second. To just stop the thoughts, stop the momentum, stop everything that's happening, and to be aware. Do you feel the difference? Do you feel how the energy is shifted? Because when we are aware, we are claiming that inner power within us. We are stopping a momentum that is outside of us, that has been driving us to a particular type of action, to a particular type of experience. So today we're going to explore this idea because we're in this theme of living in spiritual practice. And today we're going to look at it from the standpoint of awareness. But yet it's almost reversed. Because in order to live in a state of awareness, we must live in a state of spiritual practice. Isn't that sort of fun? That you can go, oh, it could be this or that or this. Can you imagine Seinfeld doing the this and that routine with spiritual awareness? Well, Elaine, what if we did this and then it was like that and Elaine would go like this and it could be this great interchange. And what was it about in Seinfeld? It was about nothing. The whole show was about nothing. And so really when we look at our lives and we look at the drama, we look at the events, and we look at all of the things that we've been worried about, it's about nothing. Because what I know about awareness is that it's self-created. That everything that we experience in our life is based on the perspective from which we are looking at life. And in order to have a new way of seeing life, a new way of experiencing life, we simply come from a new perspective. And then when we come from the new perspective, everything changes. Back when I was in Rhode Island, I decided to take up photography. And when I took up photography, I bought the 35 millimeter, I bought an Olympus, and I bought all the different lenses. But then somebody showed me that there were filters. And so you'd buy on these filters that you could screw on the lens, and some were red. And Gene and I would have fun because we would say, let's go in the woods, because we lived in this wooded area. And I would say, get this outfit on. And we'd go out in the woods, and I would take pictures and put on different filters to see what it was like. That's the same thing we can do in our lives by simply putting on a different perspective to see life through. You see, that's the power of our word. That's the power of our thoughts. And what we've got is we've got a filter on our life right now that has been there, that is a habitual filter, one that's been created by society, by humankind, by the news media. Take, for example, what's been in the news lately. It was the attack at the Boston Marathon. And we've had this whole drama going on. Let's take it from a different filter. Let's step back. Let's not invest in it. Let's not be attached and understand whatever happened was horrific. We can agree on that, can we not? It was horrific. We don't know if this person did it. Let's not judge that person until they've had their due course of justice. I believe that that's how we have to look at things. Because remember, this country was based on a premise, and it's a basic premise of spirituality, and that we are free. When God created itself as us, it gave us freedom to express. And it also said to itself, there's a law of cause and effect that's always in place. And that law of cause and effect says, as you put out, you will receive. As you sow, you shall reap. So if indeed this individual is guilty, they will reap the consequences. We don't have to worry about that. We don't have to invest ourselves in that. We can be free from that and be aware that this is how life, and I said life, is expressing itself to cause a greater awareness within itself. You see, the beauty of what happened, and we have to look, what is the good that happened? The good that happened is I'm just going to play with it with you right now, is that we now value our safety more than ever. We see how safety is more important. We can now identify with other people around the world that don't have it the way we've had it all these years. You know, the United States was this sacred ground. It was never touched. There was not these acts of terror that are commonplace every day in Israel, in that strip of land right there that's in conflict between the Palestinians and the Gaza Strip. We don't deal with that. We don't deal what it's like in Pakistan. We don't deal what it's like in Afghanistan. We don't deal what it's like in Iraq. We don't know what that life is like. But now we do. So now what happens? We can now be empathetic. We can now know that just as those bombs that went off at the Boston Marathon were horrific, sending in a drone and killing civilians is just as horrific. So we now allow we become a place where we now say, let's go for peace. So when we're singing the song of Peace Train, it's not about investing in who's wrong here. It's about who truly are we. See, awareness is something that is so critical. And it is from the standpoint, I'm going to come at it from this standpoint. There are only two things that we desire in life. And so I'm going to break down life and make it so simple for you. We are either seeking with everything we've got to feel love or to give love. That's all we are ever seeking. And we can take that all the way back to Jesus when he said, love God above all else, and then love thy neighbor as thyself. And as we talked last week, it was about the idea that you can't love God and you can't love your neighbor until you love yourself. So if you take this individual who is a suspect, you could say, what was the motive here? They were trying to find love. There was no love in their life, because if they were truly in a state of love, none of this would have happened. Because there wouldn't have been a void, and that void came out in the horrific expression. But it was a call for love. So being aware means, first off, tuning into ourselves. And we tune into ourselves, we ask the question, am I self-loving? Am I feeling love, or is there this gaping hole where my heart is? And if there's this gaping hole where my heart is, what am I filling it with? Am I filling it with alcohol? Am I filling it with drugs? Am I filling it with shopping? Am I filling it with sex? Am I filling it with the multiple partners? Am I filling it with whatever type food? You can pick the addiction, but it's an addiction because it's not there other than to fill something that doesn't exist. You see, no matter how much we do to fill this idea of love, we can't do it without love. And so what does that mean? That means to be so self-aware that we realize that the only love we can experience is the love we give ourselves. The love that we're looking for is to accept ourselves as we are. And when we accept ourselves as we are, we realize that we're whole, we're perfect, we're the divine expressing and experiencing itself. And as that divine, the power is within us, so it doesn't matter what our past is, we can now go forward and create new. So we're always building. There is a natural evolutionary process in life. And everyone is evolving in a different way. And we're evolving in a different way because we all have had different thoughts. We're coming from different perspectives. So the evolution that we desire is always going to be pulling us toward a more joyful, more peaceful, loving life. So the only way to do that is to become aware that that's what's happening. And now how can I support that? And we do that through the habit of spiritual practice. And so I'm going to take this one by one and go through some of the habits that we can build. Let's build the habit of meditation. I think this is the number one cornerstone in developing our life. Because when we build a habit of meditation, and I'm going to say it very simply, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the late afternoon. That's what I would recommend that anyone start with. And you could do guided meditation, you could do silent meditation, you could do chanting. We're not attached. And why do we do meditation? Meditation, the process of silencing the mind or quieting the mind, is to release us from the past. It's to release us from the habitual ways that we've been thinking. It's to center us into the now, and the now is the only place that love or the divine can be. The divine cannot be in the past because it doesn't exist. It cannot be in the future because it doesn't exist. In our man or human-made minds, we identify with the past, we think it is real, and we drag its big old butt with us everywhere we go. Do you see that? That's what you call junk in the trunk. You're carrying it with you. Now, that just went on film, and that's going all over the world when we publish it. So it's interesting that junk in the trunk is now having a whole new meaning. But you see, we can let the wagon go. We don't have to pull that wagon anymore. And that's what meditation allows us to do. It allows us to break that and sever that tie with the past, be present now, free ourselves of the new thoughts. Our mind is clear, and when we have a clear mind, it's actually like we've taken a whiteboard that has all of these things written on, all the chatter of our lives. And this chatter that's on that whiteboard of ours is controlling where we're going. So when we meditate, what we're doing, the longer we're meditating and we build a consistent habit, we're taking our cosmic spiritual eraser and we're erasing this stuff. And so when we're done with meditation, there's very little on that board. And then we come in and we take these other habits. We take the habit of gratitude and we start giving thanks for everything in our life. And when we're doing that, we're writing that on our whiteboard. And as we do more and more and more gratitude, we're affirming and knowing in the universe all the gifts we've got. That we're whole and perfect and complete just as we are. And then when we do the act of forgiveness, what we're doing is we're saying, I choose now to no longer carry this baggage of the past with me. I'm letting it go because what I'm realizing, the only person that lack of forgiveness is holding back is me. It does nothing to anyone else. You know, the saying is, to be unforgiving is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Not going to happen. So the longer we hold on to it, we are what? We are creating a mental atmosphere that we live in that is toxic. Cellular biology has proven that our cells respond to the mental, emotional, and physical atmosphere we live in. It is not our DNA controlling it. It's not that our parents had high blood pressure or cancer or whatever that controls what we are. That is only a tendency. But the atmosphere that we create, if we create an atmosphere where we're putting in foods that are nourishing based on our belief structure, and then we're mentally creating an atmosphere that's peaceful, that's harmonious, the cells of our body respond in that way, and we have the life that we dream in the physical body. So then we've got this atmosphere of love. So if we are loving, let's really get clear on what this idea of love is. It's the caring for our happiness without an expectation. It's just being happy, unattached to who we are, knowing that we're perfect in this and every moment. And if we can know that for ourselves, then we have to know it for each other. We have to care about the happiness of the other person and expect nothing in return. The second we put conditions on it, we are trapped. We are trapped back in that addiction phase where we're going to seek more and more of it to fill that God-sized hole. Follow where I'm coming from here? But when we give it unconditionally, expecting nothing in return, we're never let down. What we're also saying is we don't need that outside of ourselves to make us whole. We choose that other person to dance with to create a bigger dance in life. This is what I've come to uncover after thousands of years of marriage and thousands of years of experience and mistakes, is that I don't need my partner, my wife. I don't need her. Can you hear that? I'm very clear. I do not need her. I want her and I love her. And I choose to dance with her. But my life does not center on her. My life centers on me, my God connection. Then I can see the love that I have for her, and I can see her God connection. And then I can take it and see my son's God connection. I can see your God connection. But where did it start? Was finding God in me, where it always existed. See, that's the awareness we're seeking. And all of our practices are taking us deeper and deeper and deeper to push aside the idea that having 300 pairs of shoes is going to make us happy. to having every football game announced at the same time and have 52 TVs up watching football. That's not going to make us happy. You notice I dressed both the female and the male? I'm very equal on that demonstration, I want you to know. Because as you become aware, what you find out, you have a masculine personality and you have a feminine side. And that's for every man, woman in the world. So we have to tap into both sides of us, come into the center, which I call, or John DeMartini calls logos. When you're in logos and you're balanced between your intellectual, the male, and your feelings, the female, when you're in that balance, it means you're not in judgment because you embrace both the high and you embrace the low. You come into the center, you're at peace. You're in the now. You're not in wishful thinking. You're not living in a delusion any longer, because it is in the delusion that we feel pain. When we do spiritual practice, 3 things happen. We become more aware. We become very present in life. And when we become present in life, we get to experience God. And what I've come to understand, there's nothing greater in life than the experience of oneness. It is the one single thing that we're all seeking in different ways, shapes, forms, and fashions. We're seeking it to experience just when we're with ourselves. We're seeking to experience with a partner if we have one, or a partner that we desire. We seek to experience it as a group coming together like this. What is that experience like? I don't have words, because I cannot describe what the divine experience is. But I can tell you, in this very moment, that experience is present. In this room, there is a complete loving atmosphere that is safe, that is here to nurture, to support. It is unattached as to how it's being expressed. And so when we come here together on a Sunday, we come here together to celebrate our individual connection and our collective connection. And you see, we can't do it unless we do both. Because we cannot find our own by ourselves and not feel it with others, because if we do, it's not truly a connection. You see, we were not meant to be in a cave and meditate and find the divine by ourselves, because the divine is everything. Do you see that? So when we look at this event that happened this last week, just because this horrific event happened, it doesn't mean that the whole world is bad. It doesn't mean whatever we particularly focus on in these individuals, that segment of our group is bad. What it means is that if you take all the ocean, and realize that every drop in that ocean is the divine, what it means is there were a few drops that were a bit dirty. But the rest of the ocean is pure. And the rest of the ocean is what controls. So realize this. I'm going to use the event of 9/11 and an analogy that I heard about that. And that was that if you took all of the events that happened on that day, 9/11/2001, if you took every event and you put all of those events into a 1-hour newscast, 1 hour, every event in the world in that thing, here's what the bombing of the World Trade Center would have been on the news. That's it. That's all you would have heard. Because that's not all of the ocean. It was a few drops. Now we, as the rest of the ocean, if we put our energy and focus on only that event, we are now feeding an energy that will magnify and grow. So what I'm saying to you is, let's become aware and let's focus on love. We do not have to invest in the story. We can invest in the idea that there is a law that is always working, and that law will work in this case. We do not have to have an attachment to it, but we can go out and live our lives in love. We can love ourselves. We can go into meditation. We can do our forgiveness work. We can do our gratitude work. We can do our affirmations, our visualizations, our visioning. We can do our prayer work. We do all of that, and we focus on how can I be more love? Because that's what Jesus talked about. The only commandment that Jesus ever said to do was love God above all else and to love thy neighbor, and that means to love ourselves starting with. If we simply go back to that, we will transform the world. Because as many people in here, they say that one conscious, aware person will impact millions. Millions. This group alone, becoming conscious and aware, can affect billions. That's how powerful consciousness is. That's how powerful you are. That's how powerful we are. True awareness is when we can experience God in all things and in all things experience us. So when we go into this idea, can we feel the despair that must have been in this young man? How much love this young man must have wanted in his life. And from that we get an idea, let's fill ourselves more with love. And let's make sure that everyone in our lives knows, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we love them unconditionally. We accept them as they are, without regard to whatever they've done in the past, because we know that the only way that we can uncover our true selves is to experience it ourselves. So if you are parents or grandparents or partners, whoever it is you're dealing with in your life, they will not learn through your words. They must learn through their experience. And so if we know that, let's not be disappointed when they don't follow our words. Let's give thanks that we have the ability to love them and support them and nourish them as they find their God. And when we do that, we are truly aware. In that moment, we have found the Christ, the Buddha. We have found it within ourselves. Nothing else matters, for we are living in love. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.